Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Standing on the Edge. I'm your host, DJ Randy, also known as Randy Zaplata, and today is Friday, November 11th. We will be talking about opportunities versus obstacles today on the Edge of the Coin. We also have the topic of how do I predict the future during Think Like the Rich, and today's personal story will be, have I missed the ship? Finally, we'll finish off the show, as always, with what would happen if. You are listening to Standing on the Edge. When we come back, it's time for the Edge of the Coin. And welcome back to the show. The Edge of the Coin is brought to you by the CS Media Group. We provide the outstanding talent and you get the extraordinary entertainment. The Edge of the Coin is it's a segment that shows us a way of opening up our mindsets to allow us to explore both sides of any situation. We're going to go ahead and jump right into today's topic, which is opportunities versus obstacles. Opportunities versus obstacles. Now, you may think, well, how does that have anything to do with what I'm going through? Let me explain, okay? In life, and of course in all of my topics that I go ahead and try to produce for you here on this particular show, Standing on the Edge, I want you to go ahead and see that you can go ahead and take any of these topics and utilize them basically anywhere in life. Now, of course, everybody can see, okay, opportunities are okay. Obstacles, we can definitely go ahead and see it. But how is it that we get opportunities versus obstacles? That just doesn't make sense to me. Well, the way you go about doing that is this. If you take a look at any obstacle whatsoever, and you look at it long enough, you're going to find that it actually produces an opportunity to do several things. I mean, I like to tell my girls when they were growing up that if there was something they couldn't do, they basically had three choices. They could either figure it out, they could quit, or they could turn around and leave it alone. Those were basically the three obstacles right there. And technically, turning around, leaving it alone basically was another way of figuring it out. But that, so if you want to boil it down to the main basic points, it's do something about it or quit, one of the two. That's really all you've got to do, all you can handle with yourself. And there's not much else you can go ahead and say about that. So if that's the case, then why do they call it an opportunity? It never made sense to me for the longest time. I mean, I think I was probably about 35 or 36 years before I really figured out what it was that people were going ahead and trying to tell me at that particular time. I'm a little bit of a slow learner, apparently. And so I got to thinking, okay, well, let's go ahead and think this through. And I'm going to go ahead and think it through with you right now so you have the idea that I'm talking about, what I'm talking about right now also. All right. If you've got an obstacle coming up, and since this is a business show, we're going to go ahead and use this in terms of small businesses at the moment, okay? And the obstacle at this particular moment is I got bills to pay. And on the flip side of that coin, I have no money coming in. All of the money that I got has already been spent. So basically, you've got a money obstacle. A money obstacle. That's about it. And if you want to get a little fancier in terms, you can make it a cash flow obstacle. Cash flow obstacle. And so, excuse me for moving around too much. The idea here is that, of course, if you're in business, the one most necessary, important, or ingredient of keeping your business alive is that you've got to have flowing cash. You've got to have some sort of capital going through your business constantly, so that way you can go ahead and survive. You don't have to worry about whether it's going to decide to break up on you, or you're going to go ahead and not have somebody pay you next month for whatever reason, or for that matter, you have an extra bill that you weren't counting on that comes in. You can go ahead and get it taken care of. But you constantly want to have some sort of cash flowing through your system. So it's almost like a poor person's point of view. If for those people that live poorly, which is cash comes in, cash flows out, boom, straight up, just like that. But we want to go ahead and make it a little bit, stretch a little bit longer, so even more through the middle class point of view, which is cash comes in, we put a little bit of the savings just in case, and then the rest goes out from there. What we want to do, however, is go ahead and continue that trend and make it really, really, really strong. And this is where your successful business is going to come in. And so you want to go ahead and have the cash flowing in, and you set aside some in savings, you set aside some investing, set aside some for future businesses, some aside for your business, and then the rest goes to pay the bills, whether it's your salaries for your employees or salary for yourself or the company car or jet if you've got one of those. Whatever the case might be, the lights, the electricity, the phone bill, the cable, the internet, anything and everything, all the bills, quote unquote, gets paid. But the idea here is that more cash is going in than able to be flowing out. So you constantly got to go ahead and get yourself thinking, where can I place this money? Where can I go ahead and do this? So it's not just number one, lying around messing up the place, but number two, so that the people that I don't want to see it incorrectly will not be tempted to take it from me in any means that they can. And a lot of you might be thinking, okay, well, that means I'm a small convenience store and I'm going ahead and looking for somebody to go ahead and rob me. No, that's not the case. This is for any business. And what I mean also is anything from the convenience store being robbed all the way up to the IRS taking your extra hard-earned or hard money that they've gone ahead and realized that you've got, and you don't want them to take it because you've already got plans for it. That's what I'm talking about right there. So how do you do this? How do you get this taken care of? Well, the best way to go ahead and do that, of course, is to have a team. And by the way, I just explained a really good opportunities versus obstacles scenario right there, okay? Because your opportunity, if you had a team member or two or four or however many, they could then say, okay, we can go ahead and take this too much money scenario and add new extra places to go ahead and put it, which will then go ahead and tie up the money for the time being. So the IRS doesn't say, oh, you've made too much money, you've got to go ahead and get taxed on this money. It takes it out of the picture for the moment, legally. But it also goes ahead and gives you the opportunity for future profits coming back in again, or a return on your investment if you are an investor and are looking for that type of line to go ahead and listen for. So that's what we're talking about here. You're taking the obstacle of too much money and you're going ahead and making it into an opportunity. Now, how can you go ahead and do this? Well, there's several different ways. And even if you are a single person business or a solo entrepreneur, there's still several ways you can go ahead and do this. The IRS, believe it or not, will help you if you are educated in the terms and educated in how things work. That's why it's so crucial. And I keep telling you over and over and over and over again, you must get a partner. You must get some sort of team member on your team, such as a CPA or an accountant that knows these things, okay? And not just what to do with money, but what to do with the different types of money. Did you realize there is more than one type of money? Oh, yes. And this is where things really start getting confusing for so many people that have never done this before. So listen carefully. This is a very, very important thing right here for you, okay? You've basically got, according to the IRS, that's the Internal Revenue Service here in the United States. There's other types of government entities in every country that are similar to it. But what they do is they look for people to go ahead and tax money from. Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing. They're not looking for everybody. Contrary to popular belief, and even later on, once I feel that Big Brother is going to be watching everybody, they're still not going to be going ahead and looking for everybody most of the time. If you are working on a small enough scale, they don't have time for you because you're basically not going to have the money to begin with, or they're going to put you in jail and you're not going to have anything to give them. It's not worth their time. If you are doing things the way that I'm explaining it, they are not looking for you because you've already told them what you're doing. And unless you make a huge foobar mistake, they don't care, because you're letting them know, hey, your money's coming here. This is what we got. Here is the line of expenses and the income that we've got. This is proof of what we did. You can go ahead and do with it as you wish. But it's the people in the middle. The people in the middle that don't have this knowledge, that are making a lot more money than most others, that the IRS starts looking for. Okay. And if you want a list of jobs or titles that the government is always constantly on the lookout for, there they are. They're looking out for doctors. They're looking out for accountants. They're looking out for lawyers. They're looking out for larger business people or larger small business people. They're looking out for people that have made significant investments quickly. They're looking for people that have a lot of money in their bank account saved up. And finally, they're looking for people that don't know the terminology. And trust me, they have professionals that will go ahead and figure out and ferret out this information, and they can know within 3 or 4 minutes if you are worth pursuing or not, and sometimes less, depending on what's going on. So let's say, for example, you've come up on their radar and you have just purchased this beautiful, beautiful art piece, such as my t-shirt right back here in the background, standing on the edge with me, DJ Randy, on the top, on the front there. You've made this beautiful painting that you've purchased, and you are so proud of it. You have saved up $10,000 to be able to go ahead and purchase this painting, and it's a Chagall, and you're like, oh man. Now, granted, Chagall, I'm just using as an example. His paintings are probably a lot more than $10,000, but you got the idea. It's a $10,000 painting. It's gorgeous. It's going to go right in your front living room where everybody can go ahead and see it the moment they go ahead and walk in. And the IRS goes, boop, ooh, somebody just bought a painting for $10,000. That must mean that they've got somewhere around $100,000 to $150,000 or more laying around from their income that we can go ahead and take a look at. Because if you're making $150,000, if you're making less than $150,000, you're probably not going to go ahead and spend $10,000 on a painting, unless it's a very, very, very important, crucial piece from there. Once again, investor type things. So IRS goes, $10,000. Ooh, let's take a look into this. And they type in paintings by Chagall who purchased such and such. And then off of their database, of which there are many, boom, 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 here come all the listings of the people that went ahead and bought paintings by Chagall. And then for $10,000, there's a list of them right here. Boom, 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 boom. Ooh, this guy is new. We've never seen him before. We can go ahead and take a look into his accounts and excesses. And they pull up your past history based upon what you've done for tax purposes, which is legal for them, by the way. They look up over the last 5 to 10 years, and they notice that over the past 5 or 6 years, you have been consistently gaining money into your accounts, but you really haven't been paying all that much in the way of taxes. And all of a sudden, you're now able to go ahead and buy a $10,000 painting. This starts them wondering why. And so they dig a little deeper and they start thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe we can go ahead and do an audit of this particular person, and we'll go ahead and do a deep dive and make sure that what he's doing is not illegal. And therefore, we can go ahead and tax more money from him. And the next thing you know, on that $10,000 painting, you have a $3,500 tax bill. And yes, it is legal for them to do that. That's your obstacle. Now, your opportunity is this. If you have your team member, they can go ahead and start saying, okay, here's how we're going to plan to do this. Your eventual goal is to purchase a $10,000 painting sometime over the next few years, right? Yes, that's what we want to do. Okay, great. We're going to go ahead and set up a corporation or a foundation. And art foundation, so to speak, and do it legally, of course. They can go ahead and do this. And they're going to set up a museum for anybody to come in and take a look at. And this way, they're going to slowly start purchasing paintings to hang up on the walls around this particular corporation. Now, if they don't open up the building just yet, it's still legal because they've set up the basis for doing so in the future. And you don't want to open up a building with one painting. So you want to collect several paintings as they go along, but you do it little by little by little. So you go ahead and start off with a couple of $200 paintings and a couple of $1,000 paintings, and maybe one that's $500 or $750. And I mean, I'm using rather round numbers right now, but eventually building up to that $10,000 painting that you want to go ahead and do. And then when the IRS says, "Oh, we've got something new that's just popped up on our radar, let's take a look at what's going on." Who went ahead and purchased the painting by Chagall? Oh, it was this art foundation that's been telling us that they founded 3 or 4 years ago, and they've gone ahead and added this to their collection. And yes, they've been collecting paintings for several years since then. That means that they're legal. Okay, we can go ahead and tax them. But now, instead of a $3,500 tax hit on that one painting, it actually brings it down to, if they were not smart in this foundation, the tax break would go down to roughly around $350, or right in that area, maybe a little more. Because instead of a 35% tax bracket hit, you could bring it down to 10% because it's an investor business type thing. Or possibly, even if you spent more money than you had intended to do so, recoup all of that money back and pay zero taxes on it for that year. And that is why you want to have your team members, so that they can help you take those obstacles that you've got and turn them into opportunities. Okay? Always a good thing. If you don't have that, then you're always constantly thinking in the next 30 seconds, this is what I want to do next. This is where I want to go next. This is how I want to handle things in this particular instance. And it's almost always putting out brush fires or thinking in the moment, which is not a good thing if you intend on getting more and more and more money as you go along. Opportunities versus obstacles, they show up every day. The more people on your team that goes ahead and helps you with these things, the better off you're going to be for allowing it to continue as an opportunity and less of an obstacle. You are listening to Standing on the Edge. When we come back, it's time to think like the rich here on Standing on the Edge. And welcome back to the show. Think Like the Rich is brought to you by Hers Decadence, offering luxurious refreshments. I love that word. Luxurious refreshments for your body inside and out. You need to treat your body and that of your lover to a bit of luxury from Hers. You can find out what's available by emailing Heather at hersdecadence@gmail.com. By the way, if anybody here loves this channel, this content, please do me a favor. Go ahead and give it a thumbs up and a like, heart smash, whatever you happen to have for your icon for that. And if you want me to continue giving you this type of information, please let me know in the descriptions below as we go along. At the same time, if you ever decide you want to be a sponsor or a partial sponsor of this particular show, Standing on the Edge, you can go ahead and get in for as little as $1. For as little as $1, if you want to know all that information, just send me an email to joinmeattheedge@gmail.com. That's double T's, double E's, joinmeattheedge@gmail.com. Now, Think Like the Rich is a segment designed to help everybody think past their circumstances and encourage a different course of action. Today's topic is, how do I predict my future? How do I predict the future? How does the future get predicted? Well, there's all the same question, just in several different forms, and all are very important. All of them are very, very important. What I have found in the past is, first and foremost, when you're predicting any kind of future, the first thing that you have to remember is that, as if you were a fan of Yoda back in Star Wars, that second movie that came out, The Empire Strikes Back, he said a very, very, very incredible thing that just most people would let fly by and not realize. Okay, and here it is. He says, difficult to see the future is, always in motion. Difficult to see the future is, always in motion. When a lot of people think that they're going to predict the future, they're going to go ahead and think in terms of camera snapshots or selfies or however you want to go ahead and call it, rather than thinking of it in terms of streaming. The future really has to be in terms of streaming. Why? Because there's so many different directions it can go. If you take a look at any stream, any creek, any river for that matter, that's got any kind of dam or obstacle in it, what happens? The water goes one of three ways. It goes around the obstacle, it goes over the obstacle, or it goes under the obstacle. One of those three. That's really about all it can do, right? When it splits, it becomes new streams, even if it comes back into the same body of water, but it's still different streams of water. So streaming is really the proper term that we want to go ahead and look for when it comes to the future, because it's constantly flowing, it's constantly moving. You can't just go click, let's take a snapshot, and that's what we're aiming for right there, okay? It's kind of like, here's another analogy. Here's a fishing one, and bear with me, guys, because I don't fish very well. But it's like a fly fisherman going ahead and taking his line, tying the little fly onto the end of it, and he's getting that perfect cast, whoosh, 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 and he's aiming for this one spot out about 30 yards, whoosh, went plap. And because of the wind, for whatever reason, that fly fishing line landed into the water 10 feet downstream. And what happens? Well, immediately it gets pulled another 30 feet downstream. But he was aiming for this one spot up here. Well, he's already missed the mark. Why? Because he's too focused on one spot. If you want to get into the one spot, you've got to start big and narrow down, okay? Now, let's say, staying with the streaming part of this, okay? If that fisherman wanted to go ahead and hit the one spot where he knows all of those wide-mouthed bass or those trout are sitting up underneath the log or getting in there in that area, and they're just waiting for that big, fat, juicy fly to come about, they're going to look for calmer waters. They're not going to be out in the current while they're doing this. So he's got to figure out where the calmest area is in this particular stream. In other words, what's the obstacle that the opportunity is hiding behind, okay? And in this case, it might be a log that's fallen down across the river, and it's made a new set of streams that are going on. Well, all the fish are hiding in this one pool that's allowing all of this water to cascade over them and in front of them, and they're just going nice and easy and kind of keeping it out the surface on what's going on. And so what happens is that the fisherman needs to figure out first and foremost that he's got to get as close to that spot as possible. But if he doesn't hit the spot, it's okay because he's well within range. All right. And if he has enough room, he can go ahead and be flapping that fly about so that the fish will look at it and then bring it closer in, perhaps even barely above what's going on, that obstacle, knowing that the wind's going to gust a little bit and it's going to plop it down right where he wants it. And the stream is then immediately going to go whoosh, and start carrying it back downstream. Well, of course, the closer it is to the fish, even if it's going downstream, the fish are going to go, oh, look at that, and wham, come out of their hiding hole and snag what it is that they're doing. Now they're caught up in the current, so they have to fight going farther back. And all of a sudden they realize, boom, they've got something in their mouth, and it's painful. And that's because the fisherman has hooked them from there. And that's how a really great fisherman will go ahead and treat these obstacles versus opportunities while they are standing on the edge and making sure that everything is done correctly. So they've predicted the future in this aspect because they saw what they wanted in their mind's eye, which is that huge fish coming in and grabbing that bait, getting hold of it and being pulled downstream, which does all of his work for him. And now all he has to do is help him or help the fish get out of the stream by bringing it back into him. And he's got it done. But like I said, a lot of people like to go ahead and think in terms of snapshots. Okay. They think, okay, I'm going to be rich when I have a Lamborghini sitting in my driveway. And I'm going to be rich when I can go out my front door and it's a beautiful castle that I've been looking at, and I can go ahead and step into the horse-drawn carriage and be taken to the front gate. Or I want to be a rich person when I've got a movie theater. These are all static events. These are all bits and pieces, one snapshot picture of what's going on. Even the horse-drawn carriage thing. All you've said is that it's in front of your castle and able to go ahead and take you wherever, but you didn't say where. Your Lamborghini is sitting in place. This is what I'm trying to say, okay? The future is not a snapshot. Yes, it's great to go ahead and have snapshots so that you can go ahead and figure out what you want in that future, but it's not the future. Two totally different things. Okay? Because a Lamborghini, when you boil it down to it, is a very, very fast, valuable car. There are other very, very valuable, fast cars as well. But it doesn't do anything until you get into the Lamborghini, press that start button, put it into gear, hit the gas, and start driving it down the road. Whether it's the racetrack or a regular road or wherever you want to go and drive it, you're still driving it in a streaming motion while you're doing it, not just sitting still. If you were going to say, okay, when I got a Lamborghini and I can go ahead and prove because I got a photo, you can run down to the Lamborghini shop, sit in a Lamborghini, take a selfie right there with you in the right spot at the right instance and say, this is my Lamborghini right here. And man, does it go fast. And who would know the difference? You would, but nobody else until they decided to go come look for your Lamborghini in your driveway. Yeah. A lot of people think that when you've got something makes zero difference whatsoever. Because, like I said, the future is streaming. So you've got to be able to go ahead and take what you have and make the best use of it in order to go ahead and have the best future for it and with it. And this is the big takeaway that I want you to get right there. Okay. And I will explain what I'm talking about in a second. When I say that you have to go ahead and make the best use of it and for it and with it, what I'm talking about is going back to our earlier segment as well. Let's say for the IRS. Okay. If you've got a car collection in your car museum and you're slowly building up the cars, what's the use or the purpose of this Lamborghini? Well, first and foremost, it's to go ahead and sit in this museum so that people can go ahead and admire it. What's the second use for it? Well, it might be to go ahead and take all the special needs kids out for a drive in it on the racetrack, because that's a wonderful thing for you to go ahead and do. It's going to make them feel absolutely fantastic in the first place. And of course, it then allows other means of uses so that the government says, okay, we will legally allow you to have this and not bill you a lot of money for it because you are doing great things with it. There's a great proper use for it, and it's being used for what it was intended for in the first place, which was to drive. If you're going to drive it, you might as well drive it. If you're going to buy it just to have it, it's just going to sit still and will not do anything except decrease in its value. Not necessarily a good thing. So, how do you get around this? Once again, well, you start predicting the future in motion. You predict the future in motion. Okay, so once again, with your team, here's what you can do. You can tell your team, hey, I need different scenarios. Here's my obstacle. I want a Lamborghini. I want to be able to drive my Lamborghini, but I don't want to have to pay a lot of money in taxes on my Lamborghini. How can I do this? How can I make all of this happen? And when you figure it out, once your people are in there and they're working that problem, they're throwing out different answers, good, bad, and otherwise, it really doesn't matter. Then you can go ahead and start realizing that there's a bunch of different ways to go ahead and do that. And the first one, of course, is to take a look into the IRS backsites or websites, so on and so forth, and they will actually help you along the way. They will go ahead and say, here is an approved list of uses for these types of things. And if you don't find that particular list, or you don't find your item on the list, then you can create your list. You can then go ahead and be proven that you do this on a regular and a constant basis, and therefore the IRS might still keep an eye on you here and there, depending on what you purchase, and to make sure that you're not doing things illegally. But for the most part, they're looking for bigger, big mouth bass than what you've got right there to offer them, going back to that fishing analogy. So if you're going to go ahead and predict your future, the first thing you need to do is have more than one person that is on your team. Okay. Now, at the same time, you want to make sure you got the right people on your team. If you've got a brother-in-law that has done nothing except play video games for the last 15 years, and there's nothing against video games. I'm a current big fan of video games myself, and I'm 53 years old, and they've been playing nothing but video games for the past 15 years, and they've got a job at McDonald's or Wendy's or something that's not paying them a lot of money. And they're going, yeah, I can go ahead and help you with this. I can get you your Lamborghini. I got people I know who to hook up, and I know that we can go ahead and get you enough money to take care of this, and we can get this stuff. He might not be the best person to go ahead and ask for advice, okay? But if you've got, let's say, for example, your Uncle Sheldon, who happens to know his accountant, and his accountant deals with people that are very, very wealthy, and how they took their wealth and put it into different investment type vehicles to allow them to go ahead and get these items, such as that Lamborghini, and not be able to pay a lot of taxes on it. Then Sheldon might be able to refer you to that particular CPA, and you can go from there. And then this person can say, okay, you're starting from scratch, so we have to think in long terms. Long terms. It's not just tomorrow. It's not just a month from now. It's not even just a year from now. We're talking 4, 5, 10 years down the road is the long game that we're talking about right there. And then, of course, there are milestones from now until that 10-year mark when you want to get what you've got that you can go ahead and do. And this will allow them to go ahead and continue the process legally. And therefore, eventually, your future ends up with the prediction that you made to begin with. Wow. Is it really that simple? Yes, it is. It is really that simple. So the best way to go ahead and predict the future is, number one, stop thinking in terms of selfies, or stop thinking in terms of pictures, because snapshots do not do it. Snapshots are just a very small part of it. Now, they can be important if you go ahead and put them up on your wall and you say, yes, eventually one day I want that, and this is going to be part of my future. But if you're thinking of the future, think of it in terms of a streaming project. You've got to stream to where that spot is and then continue on bigger, better, more gracefully as you go down the stream. You are listening to Standing on the Edge. When we come back, it'll be time for Tales from the Edge. And welcome back to the show. Tales from the Edge is brought to you by the HRS Foundation, investing in future generations to ensure a better tomorrow. Now, this goes again, like I was saying just a minute ago, to getting your future going on and making it look like the snapshot that you went ahead and did. Okay, this is a fantastic thing. This, once again, is basically predicting your future and making it happen. Today's example, or the segment today, Tales from the Edge. Let me push my teeth back. Yeah, Tales from the Edge is a shared personal example of people and situations that I've experienced during my path to growing wealthy. And today's story is about all those people that go, well, this is great. I want to go ahead and predict my future, but Have I missed the ship? Have I missed the ship? It feels like there are so many things out there that are completely not in or under my control. I feel like I went ahead and missed the ship. It pulled up to my port, it loaded up, and it sailed away. Whoop, and I'm standing there on the port going, wait, you're supposed to be right over here, and I'm over here. I'm like three docks down, and you're pulling away now. That was my ship. Well, there's a couple of reasons for that might be the case. Number one is that you were aiming for the wrong ship. Number two, you didn't have the ticket to go ahead and get onto the ship. Or number three, you never realized the ship was there in the first place. And it's funny because that can actually happen. Now, I used to work for cruise lines. I used to work for Royal Caribbean Cruise Line for 7 years. And so I can understand what I'm talking about. There are so many times where you get so used to having such a huge thing that you don't realize that it's there anymore. You don't. I mean, there were a lot of times where I had to go ahead and be greeting people as they would come on the ship, or degreeting them, so to speak, saying, have a great day, giving them advice, information, direction, so on and so forth from where I was at when they were getting off the ship. But my focus was on that one little portal right there where the people were coming off, and to make sure that nobody was falling and hurting themselves on the gangplank or gangway, as they were getting off the ship onto dry land. And so my focus was very, 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 very small on that point, and not on the huge ship that was right there behind me. And so there was a lot of times that I would miss the ship because I would forget it was there, basically. And it seems impossible to go ahead and do. But it really is. You can go ahead and walk one of these ships. Now, the ship that I was on, the larger ship that I was on, was roughly about the size of 1.5 football fields. It's around 450 feet long from front to back. And it would take a couple of minutes to go ahead and walk there. I mean, you could go ahead and start from the midship gangway. Plank is, of course, where you're walking off the ship into the water. Gangway, where you're going onto dry land. And apologies, please, to the cruise line industry. I am very sorry. I did not mean to make that faux pas. But the people would get off the ship, and I could go ahead and finish that, and I might want to go ahead and see what's around on the other side of the ship. Well, I'd have to walk to either end. In order to go ahead and do so from the center, it would take me about 2.5 minutes walking pretty quickly to get to the front to where I could actually see around the front of the ship, assuming that it wasn't stretching out past the dock by itself. Or I would have to go ahead and do the same thing, about 2.5 minutes to go ahead and walk to the back, the stern end of the ship, and peer around it that way. And at that point, you're going, well, yeah, there's a big ship there. I can see it's around there. But once again, it's still pretty much right there in your face. It is bigger than your field of view. So you're only seeing a big white obstacle right there in your face. And you can easily forget it's there. So let's bring that back to today's topic. Have I missed the ship? Well, that depends. Because if you're already thinking about your future, understand this. And here's another good takeaway leading back to the last segment there. Your future, as grand as you may have made it, as huge as you may have envisioned it, it can still happen later today if the circumstances are correct and everything's laid into play. What you then have to do is be able to go ahead and get your ticket to get onto that ship and make use of the ship itself. Okay. So let's say, for example, you know where you want to go down in life. You want to go ahead and have we'll make it a video game business where you are streaming live video games with other people, and people are paying you to go ahead and play your video games, and you're able to go ahead and do this, and you want to go ahead and continue that. So you make a second one and a third one and a fourth one, and you've got this huge successful video game company, and you're able to go ahead and get more people coming in, and they're paying you more money to go ahead and get more people to do the same thing over and over and over again. This is great. Where does it stop? Where have you envisioned yourself going? Are you eventually going to sell that business and just stop and lay around on the beach? Well, technically, that's still a streaming part. It's just that now the stream is much slower from what you were doing from there, because you doing nothing means that you're a lot easier to see in terms of government work. Okay. If you already know that you are wanting to go ahead and get into your video game business, and then you want to go ahead and sell it and make a bigger business, or invest into the real estate around that company, so you own the building that the company is in and they're paying you more money for that, then once again you're streaming into your own future from there, and you're making use of the ship that's already there, that has been able to go ahead and create great sums of income for you at that time legally. If you've got this vision in your head, you want to go ahead and make this company, you want to sell it for millions of dollars and just sit back and relax and do nothing there, then you pretty much have missed the ship, because you don't know, first off, when your ship's going to sail. Secondly, you don't know if the sale price of that ticket, or the business, so to speak, is going to allow you to be able to go ahead and sit around on the beach for 15, 20 years doing absolutely nothing and not get taxed for it. Okay. So that's why I say you want to go ahead and envision your future as a stream moving along. And this way, let's say, for example, that you're almost there. You've got your video game business. It's up. It's thriving. It's almost worth what you want it to be. And you notice that the near future is coming, and there's going to be a huge tax hike coming up in the near future. How do you know this? Well, number one, because the Federal Reserve has said, yeah, we're going to raise interest prices. Or the government has said, yeah, we're going to start taxing everybody that makes above a certain amount of money, say $150,000 a year, and then moves on from there. Well, your ship is already starting to sail away at that point. So what you can do is try to go ahead and either cash in your business to be able to jump on the ship immediately right there, or you can do what else is very prudent, and that is go ahead and purchase a smaller yacht, or even a water taxi for that matter, to go ahead and get you from the dock to the ship that's pulling away, so that the ship doesn't have to wait for you, but you're still able to catch up with it. And that is the big thing that I want you to go ahead and remember. Because if you are really basically missing out on your ship right now, because you can go ahead and see that the stock market is going to crash, or you can see that the interest rates are about to go ahead and skyrocket like they're already starting to do, or you've got Kamala Harris and AOC and other people in Congress that are saying tax, 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 tax. Let's get all these people taxed and move on from there. And then you got other people that are going, yeah, let's do it. And other people that are going, no, stay away. I made my money. I want to keep my money, and I'm not doing anything wrong. And they're going, yeah. And the other people are going, yeah, you're criminal because you're holding on to your money and you're using it cash and so on. Whatever the case may be, if you see your ship, whatever your envisioned future is that you've streamed in your mind, and it's moving away from you, then you've got to figure out a way to catch up with it. Once again, taking that obstacle and making it an opportunity. Now, here's another good example for you right now. Let's stay with those things, okay? You've got your business, and it's giving you throwing off high amounts of money, and you're able to go ahead and get this, and you want to go into your ship, which is basically going over to the island of Mykonos. Let's go ahead and say you go to Mykonos, and you want to go ahead and purchase a business there and go ahead and live there while you're at it. Well, you don't know what you want to go ahead and do. Okay, great. Well, here's one way you can take care of this. Speaking of using a ship while you're doing it, you go ahead and sell your business for less money than you expected to begin with, because you can already tell that the tax hikes are about to come up and take a huger chunk out of it. So you go ahead and decide to sell at a smaller valuation than you would have to begin with. It's still several hundred millions of dollars, and I'm just using this as an example right now, but it's not as much as you wanted. You know, it will only get you 5 years on Mykonos with a small house and able to go ahead and lay around on that beautiful white dusty sand beach. And so you go, okay, well, let's go ahead and take the next step to it. Let's go ahead and get the yacht. Well, we go ahead, in this case, purchase a small yacht company. And you're selling yachts now, but you're able to go ahead and take that one of their yachts as the way to advertise for it. And you go ahead and sail it across the ocean. while the company's still selling their yachts and spitting off revenue and giving you money in your pockets while you're doing it. You're sailing off to Mykonos, boom, and then you can go ahead and set up a company right there, boom, in Mykonos, selling these same yachts, and you are now an international company, and you're able to go ahead and do the same thing. And now you're making money hands over fist in more than one country, and you're having to pay a little bit less money in taxes because you only have to pay into the U.S. only what you sold in the U.S., and you only have to pay to Greece what you sold in Greece. And if you've got two different companies and they're using the same sort of strategies, then you're taking the greater amounts of it and putting it back into where you want it, which is your control. How do you do this? With your team members. They are the ones that can help you go ahead and do this. So just because your ship is sailing away does not necessarily mean that you have missed it. It just means you might have to go ahead and figure out another way to get onto the ship, because it will not wait for you until the things start crashing around behind it. If there's an earthquake or a tsunami, it knows it's in trouble. It's not going to be able to get out of port at that point. So it's got to sail when it's got to sail. Whether you're on it or not, it doesn't matter. So have you missed the ship? Well, that's up to you. If you want to catch up to the ship that's in motion, start thinking in motion. Take that future, start streaming it out so you can see where you want to go and how to go ahead and intersect and catch up to that particular point as well. You are listening to Standing on the Edge. When we come back, it's time to close out the show with what would happen if. And welcome back to the show. What Would Happen If is brought to you by DJR Enterprises. Today's topic for What Would Happen If is it's about time. It's about time. Now, I know I've been talking in terms of time pretty much all segment or all show long for that matter, but it's about time is definitely what you want to go ahead and start realizing, because time is crucial at the moment. It is crucial. Time, of course, is a relative thing. What do I mean by relative? I mean, it feels different to everybody. Everybody's got their own form of or concept of time, so to speak, okay? The best way to go ahead and describe this is that if you have your brand new house, you've never lived in it before, you've never lived on your own before, and now you're having to go ahead and figure things out, and it's a new stove that you've never seen or even had the concept of having happen in the first place. It's a brand new magnetically heated stove, and so you can go ahead and just push a button and bam, in immediate heat. I mean, serious immediate heat on the stove. Well, if you got your hand on top of the stove and you're looking down and you press, and of course none of the buttons are labeled, so you got to figure out what's there. You press a button and all of a sudden, wham, immediate heat comes under your hand. Whoa! If your hand was on there for more than a second, it could feel like it was on there for an hour, especially if it got really, really burned, and that burn is lasting for many hours or days or so on and so forth. That relativity of time is immense. But at the same time, if you are going to school and you really, really, really like what you're learning, the school bell could ring, and it could ring again 2 seconds later, and all of a sudden, a whole hour and a half has passed. Once again, it's that relativity right there, okay? So it's about time. It's about time we did something. It's about time we took control. It's about time we started streaming our own future and taking control of it, okay? Why am I saying this? Because I went ahead and mentioned to you the last segment about the ship sailing out right now. I can already see right now that it's not just one ship, but many ships pulling out of port of the United States and many different first world countries. Why? One reason and one reason only: the US dollar. The US dollar. The US dollar has basically gone from 100% of its worth nearly 100 years ago to almost nothing as of 5 years ago. There was only 2% value left in that US dollar that you would have gotten from 100 years ago, 5 years ago. Today, it's even less. And it's constantly getting less and less and less and less. The value, if you don't understand this, this is a very, very important and crucial thing that you have to know about. Otherwise, you're going to be stranded in some place that you don't want to be stranded in. All right. The dollar itself, and you can go ahead and talk to any economic guru worth his salt for that matter, or any investor or business person for that matter as well, that knows what's going on. Okay. And or you can even look at it from a home economic standpoint of view. All right. Well, let's take a look at it from a home economic standpoint of view right now. Okay. You've gone out and you're going to the grocery store because your cupboard's bare. You've got to have food. You gotta have food. Well, what's happening? Number one, you go to the grocery store. If you go to one of the big box stores such as Kroger or Publix, or in my area, or to Walmart for that matter, or even Target, you might go ahead and take a look and say, boy, this is kind of cool. There's a lot of stuff here, until you start looking. And the things that you need, the most popular stuff like your flour and your eggs and your bread and your sugar and your macaroni and cheese and your beans and your ground beef or whatever it is, or the chicken that you want to go ahead and purchase. All of these things, you might have a little bit of those on the shelf. You got a little more toilet paper these days, and it might be on the shelf. But for the most part, it's either empty, or if there is stuff there, the prices have jumped dramatically. Now, there's a lot of people out there will go ahead and make the excuse, well, it's because our supply chains have broken down. No, that's not it at all. That's definitely not it at all. That's the curtain that people are pulling to the side so you don't see the truth. And the truth is right now that the dollar bill is about to go ahead and evolve into something new. This can be good, this can be bad. It's totally up to the people that are actually in control of the dollar. And it can be good or bad to the people that are using the dollar also, if they know what they're doing. Now, let's go back to what I was saying before, back in the first topic, which is you got to have your team. If you have your team together, it doesn't matter if the dollar is gaining value or it's losing value. It doesn't matter if the economy is about to crash or it's about to go ahead and explode. It doesn't matter if we are about to go ahead and go to war or stay in peace. It doesn't matter if we are about to go ahead and be swallowed up by another economy or country, or continue into bigger and better things and having everybody else join us. It doesn't matter if you've got the right people on your team. Why? Because everything that I've been talking about right now, with the right people on your team, they can go ahead and very easily get you into the transition of where you are right now to where you want to be in the near future and in the far distant future as you're going along. And it doesn't matter if you're using the dollar, it doesn't matter if you're using the rupee, it doesn't matter if you're using the renminbi, the yen, the English pound. It doesn't matter what currency it is, gold and silver, Bitcoin. It really doesn't matter, because the principles are the same. And the people that can go ahead and help you there are the ones that know all of these different types of tools to go ahead and use for what it is you want. Now, let's say, for example, let's go ahead and take this pen that I've got right now. Okay. I can take this pen and I can go ahead and use it, if I really want to, as a scratching device. That's not what it was designed to do. It was designed to write on a piece of paper or on another piece of material and transfer the ink inside to whatever that material happens to be. That was its designated use. It can still be used for that purpose. But if I go ahead and take the same pen and I go ahead and decide, if I take the cap off, I can then use it as a lethal weapon also, if I so decide to do and carry the consequences as well. But I can then tack hold of something and hold it in place such as a picture on the wall. Bam! It's stuck in the wall. There's no way it's going out unless I go ahead and take it out myself. But it's being used for a different purpose, even though it's still the same tool that you were using before to write your notes with. There's all kinds of different ways. And if you're very creative or you have creative team members, they can help you by going ahead and taking the same tools that you've got and exploding or expanding their uses into so many different ways to make it so much better for you. They can make it so much better for you. It's about time you started getting your team member. You need at least one person on your team. One person on your team that knows more than you, so you can bounce ideas off of them, so that they can go ahead and say, well, start looking in this direction. And by the way, if they know more than you do, they can refer you to a third team member who can then expand your group, and you can really start bouncing things off. And they can expand you to 5 or 6 other members, which can really start shaking things up. And finally, you've got a huge whole group of what's going on. And you've got to be careful, because if you don't, you're going to have lots and lots and lots of ideas flying around, a lot of confusion, and nobody leading the process. So get your team together, keep it small enough to where you can manage it, but big enough to where it's more than you, and you can then stream your own future and create it at the same time. You've been listening to Standing on the Edge. I want to go ahead and give a shout out to the people that I'm studying right now, and that's those extraordinary salespeople that make in excess of $1 million a year. And it doesn't matter what the industry is. It could be meat industry. It could be the farming industry. It could be the sales and insurance industry. It could be the stock market. It could be any number of different things. You name it, car industries. If you make more than $1 million in sales, I am studying you. And I definitely want to know your secrets, and I'm digging in. I want to remind you, if you want to go ahead and be a partial sponsor to Standing on the Edge, it takes as little as $1. Just send me a text to 470-554-2134, or you can email me at joinmeattheedge@gmail.com. joinmeattheedge@gmail.com. That's double T's, double E's, and I will go ahead and give you the link to go ahead and put that dollar in from there. I will be back again next week, next Thursday, November 18th at noon. But until then, I want you to remember to expand your awareness. Think of something every day to help you on your path, and hopefully soon, I'll see you on the edge. Have a great weekend. And by the way, happy Veterans Day to all of those veterans out there. Take care. We'll see you soon. See you later, Aaron.